Does the 10-year experiment of the Snyder-verse ushering in the new age of DC heroes on the big screen come to a close with a whimper or a bang? Find out when Johnnie Torch reviews Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. All right, welcome into another Johnnie Torch Reviews. It's been quite a while since I've done a video. It's usually par for the course for December. I'm very busy, and of course, I had a cold. Apologies in advance if my voice is still a little hoarse, a little bit on the rough side. But we have a wonderful Christmas edition of Johnnie Torch Reviews. It's the week between Christmas and New Year's, always a very magical time when nobody really knows what day it is, and it's just a lot of fun. And on such a day this week, I decided to go and check out Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is different for me. I usually wait for like Half Price Tuesday to go, but I found myself bored on a Wednesday saying, well, why wait till next year? I might as well get this over with as quickly as possible. And of course, for all of you out there, Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas holiday as much as I did. And of course, we also have New Year's coming up. So Happy New Year. We're going to have a great 2024 up before us before you know it. And I'm sure it's going to be quite a banger, as they say. Now, let's talk about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is a movie that was delayed probably about 3 years more than it needed to be. Aquaman, of course, the first movie was the, I guess, only billion-dollar film in DC's DCEU. And I quite liked it a lot. I thought it was very good. Now, Jason Momoa, his casting aside, it was very faithful to kind of what Aquaman is known for in the comics. Again, I'm not an authority on Aquaman. Aquaman is kind of the Thor of the DC universe, a character that I'm not overly familiar with. And, you know, you're kind of willing to give them a little leeway there when you're not too familiar with the lore. But again, so Jason Momoa, very endearing fellow. He's a capable actor. And so the first Aquaman film was quite a resounding success for the DCEU, who were in need of a success. And again, there's a lot of aspects to this, and we'll go over all of it because this is the official ending of the DCEU, as we, teased in the beginning. How does it stack up as a closer for the DCEU? What was the DCEU experiment? What was the final result after all this? And it started out with a lot of promise. Of course, Snyder, being Snyder, didn't really have a handle on these characters from the beginning, from Pa Kent's maybe let him die and, sacrificing himself to a hurricane for no apparent reason, to Batman branding and apparently killing people, not the least of which he was trying to kill Superman. It was just, and then there was other aspects of like poorly cast roles that really didn't resonate with the characters themselves as they should have. Momoa to an extent. I would argue also Gal Gadot, definitely Ezra Miller. And we had from the jump a very shaky and scatterbrained DCEU. Now, there was some bright spots. Again, we had Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn was quite good. But then again, we had Jared Leto as the Joker, who was, at the very least, an acquired taste. So we didn't really have a DCEU that was a real, barn burner right out the gate. It was coming with a lot of qualifications. You had to close one eye and squint a little bit to sort of see these characters as, the original conception on the page. Now, in the defense of Aquaman, I thought it was closer to the comic than most of the other, films that came out. Certainly closer than Man of Steel, Batman v Superman. Uh, Arguably, the first Wonder Woman maybe was pretty close to comic accurate. So basically, Aquaman is the gold standard. Let's just put it that way for the DCEU. And they had a very successful first Aquaman film, and I was quite pleased with it. But they sort of sat on this one for way too long. And if they had struck while the iron was hot, I think this film would have been better off for it. You could tell there was the plague of rewrites, reshoots, trying to change things around. Quite honestly, The Flash should have been the last DCEU film, and I think that was probably the plan originally before the Amber Heard stuff happened, and they kind of also had to rejigger that, which we'll get into the Amber Heard section in a moment. But that left this film in the lurch. A lot of things were cut out involving Ben Affleck's Batman. Apparently was supposed to have a plum role in this. Rumors say that it was Michael Keaton at one point because, again, shifting sands behind the scenes of the DCEU. All of that is cut. This is its own film. This has no ties whatsoever to the DCEU at large, unlike The Flash and Black Adam and a lot of the other films that, even Shazam 2, that they were trying to still put up the premise of interwoven into the multiverse and this universe's version of the Justice League. Now, we'll do like a spoiler-free section here for a second, just in case, because this is one of the earlier times I'm reviewing a film. So if you're seeing this early and you haven't had a chance to see it and you want to see it, I'll try to keep it spoiler-free for the next 2 or 3 minutes. But again, my feeling is that they kind of squandered the energy here. It feels a lot like the product of just trying to do the bare minimum and fix it up so that it'll be appealing to everyone. To the people that don't like Amber Heard, well, she's not in it that much. To the people that don't like the DCEU at large, well, it has no ties. To the people that like Jason Momoa, well, he's more Jason Momoa-ish as Aquaman in this film than previously. So, again, it kind of feels a little bit out of balance with the rest of the DCEU, with Aquaman at large as in previous films in this universe, making it kind of difficult. But I did enjoy the movie for the most part. I think that they did successfully capitalize on the storyline. And of course, I don't think it's a spoiler to say Orm is back. And they try to play with that sort of Thor-Loki relationship between the brothers. I think apart from Amber Heard, everybody kind of gets their day in the sun. They get a moment to shine. The villain, it's kind of the stereotypical snarling villain for Black Manta this time. But, it works. And, that actor makes it work. I can't remember his name right now. Yahya Abdul II Mateni. I don't know. I can't remember his name, but apologies to the actor. But he does a very good job here. And again, if you're looking for just a simple, action, superhero, fun outing at the movies, this will do the job for you. If you're looking for something a lot more substantial, then you're going to be disappointed. On Twitter, I compared this to Ant-Man 3 Quantumania, because I just got through watching that this week. Hoping to do a video talking about this year's films and so forth. And Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was kind of in that undesirable spot where it had a very epic feel that they're trying to build up something big, but the execution was so far off. And it's very similar here in Aquaman. there's moments where you feel like this is building up to be something epic. Then there's other moments that are so dull and boring and sort of bringing the pace down to a crawl that you kind of feel like they could have cut about 20 minutes out of this film and it would probably be better for it. But at the end, there's a nice big slugfest between the hero and the villain with the whole universe at stake and so forth, and kind of makes up for, some of the slower, stodgier pacing issues. And of course, also there's problems with the humor as well. Not a lot of humor in both films. I mean, Modoc, pretty much falling flat as a character. And in this case, there's a lot of attempts at sort of a low hanging fruit humor, if I could put it that way. There's like maybe two or three legitimate laughs, you know. So I mean, I would give this a recommendation depending on how invested you are in the Aquaman series. The first film, if you liked it, you'll probably enjoy this one. If you like Momoa in the multiverse of the DCEU, you'll probably enjoy this. But again, it's kind of on the fence, dangling over the side of being good, but it's pretty much on the mid fence. So leaving it like that, we'll talk spoilers now. If you don't want to hear anything about the spoilers, you might want to come back later. But this one picks up pretty much maybe a couple of years after the last Aquaman. Aquaman's now married to Mera, and they have a son, Arthur Jr. And this was sort of, I was glad for a change that they're not really building this one up in the media. Usually if you don't go see a movie the first 2 days, the whole movie's spoiled for you. And there was a lot of talk behind the scenes about, well, people are walking out of this film in previews, they're disappointed and they're upset, and if you know the comics, at least the Silver Age comics, this was like in the 70s. Aquaman Jr. was actually, well, Arthur Jr. was actually killed by Black Manta in the comics, which led to, for a long time, Arthur and Mera being estranged, and there was a lot of, bad blood, of course, between Black Manta and Aquaman. And so there was sort of a shadow hanging over this film that it was going to be unpleasant, that it was going to be dark, which the opposite was true. And I think that's for the better for it. I think that was a smart move, because having them go that dark, I don't think that benefits Aquaman. Aquaman is a brighter character, and I know a lot of comic writers tried not to do him that way. I never felt that worked out. I remember reading some of the Peter David run back in the 90s with the hook hand, and he's sort of more a gruff and barbarianish version of Aquaman. I was never particularly fond of that. I prefer the boisterous, sort of happy-go-lucky Aquaman, which is kind of what's presented in these films. So again, we dodged a bullet there, but the basic premise here, of course, is Black Manta wants revenge on Aquaman for killing his father. He has assembled some kind of small military force that he's found this ancient civilization, which is the Lost Kingdom, that is frozen in the ice. And with the Black Trident, he is able to communicate with the sort of undead leader that's frozen in the ice of the Lost Kingdom. And he promises him revenge on Aquaman if he will free them. So Black Manta, of course, goes and finds this hidden cache of sort of Atlantean nuclear power that apparently is going to free these Lost Kingdom Atlanteans. And in the process, this is the only minorly woke thread that is going on through the movie, is by them using this sort of nuclear power, they're causing global warming to accelerate, and it's going to cause the Earth quite a distress. In the meantime, Aquaman is finding that it's difficult to be a ruler, at least for him. It's not something he ever wanted, again, in Shades of Thor. And actually, at one point, he actually calls Orm Loki as a joke, which is not the least of the surprising sort of fourth wall breaking jokes that are made in this film. We'll get to that in a second as well. But so Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and he's splitting his time between his father, Tamura Morrison, in the lighthouse, still raising his infant son, and going to council meetings with essentially the five families of Atlantis, who are not thrilled with him being their monarch. And at a certain point, they find out that Black Manta is causing all this difficulty, and so he has to break out Orm from prison, which is basically a sand hut in the desert where he is starved except for a glass of water a day and is routinely beaten. Which, I mean, as bad as Orm was in the first film, I don't know that this was kind of fair and ethical treatment of a prisoner for them to just let him be subjected to this for I don't know how long it was supposed to have been, about 2 years maybe. So um and there's some interesting things. They have Topol, the octopus, again another character from the comics that has sort of a brief importance here as a aid to Aquaman in this rescue mission. They do the Captain America thing where Orm is like really emaciated looking, and Aquaman has like this invisible suit that he wears that you see in the image on the screen if you're watching. That helps him get in so that he's not going to be held responsible for breaking out Orm. And that was probably one of the best scenes in the film. I think there's two really good scenes and there's two like problematic points, and we'll get to that before we get to the last act because we're already going through the movie pretty quickly. But in the first act, we have Black Manta doing his whole thing trying to find the Lost Kingdom, and they introduce Randall Park, who a lot of comic book film fans will remember as Jimmy Woo in the Ant-Man films, and showing up periodically. WandaVision was another one. And I don't dislike him. I don't dislike him as an actor. A lot of that first act stuff could have been trimmed though, because we have him falling into a crater and one of his assistants is eaten by the giant squid, and then they find him and they try to give him like an inflated role in this film. And I think you could easily have trimmed about 15 minutes away from Randall Park's character and some of what Black Panther is trying to do in his search and destroy mission, because it really does bog down the film. Now, I know, like I said, Randall Park's a engaging actor. It's not bad that they're trying to make him more than just the stereotypical scientist that kind of gets under the skin of the villain, which is kind of the role he's given here. But I think we get the idea. We don't really need to have an extra 15 minutes of him in this film. I think a nice introduction, a scene where he's kind of, at a certain point, Black Manta literally threatens him with a knife. And, you get the arc right there from his introduction to that scene where he sort of changes his ways to the scene where he does the heroic rescue at the end. That's kind of all you really needed. I don't think we needed to really pad him as a character in this film. Second problem is then we get to the good action set piece, which is, like I said, Arthur rescuing Orm, and he's fighting off all these, skeletish fish warriors, which, again, that was kind of strange. It kind of felt like it was the same thing, the same race that, Black Manta was trying to free from the ice. I think they should have differentiated that a little bit, but, whatever. And so Orm gets into the water and becomes all buff and heroic and strong and everything. And that was really exciting. Now, the problem is after that, there's like another sluggish 20 minutes that they could have cut, where they go to some Shangri-La where the crickets are huge. And I don't know. I mean, I guess this was a byproduct of the nuclear reactor that they were getting all this energy from or something. They made these grasshoppers huge or whatever. But again, this felt like another. They were trying to give them a bonding, moment to sort of get them. I can understand that. A lot of this though felt really stodgy and slow paced. I think they could have trimmed another 5 or 10 minutes out of this as well. This also includes them going to see a sort of Jabba the Hutt esque um, fish gangster, which was I thought was pretty amusing. It was an entertaining scene. I found out later on that it was the voice of Martin Short actually playing this gangster creature, and possibly that's why it, it it worked, and it was kind of funny. It was one of the more times that the humor worked in the film. But again, so you get this like slow build that they're starting to get together and they're starting to, you know, have some pretense of being brotherly with one another. And now let's veer off a little bit. We'll talk about Amber Heard. Now, the film is really based, around the relationship between Arthur and Orm. They really leaned into that and are building into that story, and that's good. And I think that's kind of where the story needed to go. But they cut Amber Heard's role down to the bare minimum, to the point where it was embarrassing. Again, I let's just briefly touch on the controversy. YouTubers were, like blood in the water. They were going after the story, and Amber Heard is a terrible person, and the stuff that she did to Johnny Depp was terrible. And again, I don't feel personally the need to take a side in that. I mean, from the evidence presented, I don't think Johnny Depp is a terrible person the way that she was trying to portray him. In the same way, I don't think that she's this terrible person that, you know, uh, she apparently had a temper. But again, this is something that I can separate the art from the artist, and I don't really feel it's my business to pass judgment on them. Again, as I always say, I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe that Amber Heard should never work again. I think it's wrong that Johnny Depp has taken it on the chin and, possibly won't be Jack Sparrow again, a character that's close to his heart. And I know he lost out on a role, I think, in that Harry Potter franchise. So again, I don't take part in these things. And, I don't believe in canceling any of them over their private lives. You don't want to see a film that has them in it. That's all well and good. That's your right. I'm not saying you have to. But it was a real disservice to the character of Mira that they cut her role so badly. She only has a handful of lines, basically consisting of, come on, let's go do this. She does not have a character moment in the film. She doesn't have a character moment with her husband. She doesn't have a character moment with her father. She doesn't have a character moment with her son. And again, this is an important character in the Aquaman universe. Mira, she was very important in that first film. And because, public opinion has turned against Amber Heard, the character is suffering for it. I don't believe that should be the case. I don't believe that Amber Heard should have been fired and recast either. But again, what they did was to cut her scenes down to the bare minimum and reshoot certain things to pad the film. And I think that padding is what kind of drags the film down a little bit. Had they just kept the Mera scenes in, made it feel more natural and organic, I think you would have had a better product. And, like I said, the people that didn't want to see Amber Heard could have just stood away, or you hold your nose and say, well, this is an Aquaman movie, and I know that he's he's got a wife that's got to show up once in a while. But apparently, between, like I said, a couple of brief dialogue scenes and a couple of brief action scenes, she's really not in the film. Her presence is felt. She's comes in and comes and goes. They put her on the shelf for a good, I don't know, 20-minute portion in the middle of the film when Arthur's off with Orm and stuff, where she's got this nasty looking injury, and apparently she heals up from that within a couple of days. Again, it was a very strange choice, but I guess if I'm, any kind of prognosticator about what they probably did, was figure that we got to take her out of a larger portion of the film. If she's hanging around, doing things, with Arthur and Orm, she's in the movie too much. So they had to find a way to cut her scenes back, and I think that's the reshoot stuff, the giant crickets and the Jabba the Hutt type gangster stuff. That was probably the reshoot stuff, because she doesn't figure in that at all, and then she shows up to save the day, ostensibly after all that stuff is done. So again, I'm disappointed in that. I, you know, I don't understand it. Amber Heard, she's literally one of the top three best looking actresses out there as well. So you really don't do your movie a service by taking her out. But again, they feared that backlash from the cancel culture. And did it pay off? Probably not, because the film is not really making that much money anyway. We have, like I said, Tamara Morrison is back, and Black Manta goes to kill him, but he stabs him, but he doesn't want to kill him because he sort of wants Aquaman to suffer first. Nicole Kidman is back as Aquaman's mother. Again, she doesn't have a lot to do, but they made her presence felt, and she has a big moment at the end where she gets to say before the third act to the brothers, I want you to take care of each other. I want you to look out for each other. I want you to love each other. And that was like worth her whole involvement in the film. That's what I mean about Amber Heard doesn't get that. She doesn't get that one moment where she brings it and there's a scene and it's really emotional and it's necessary. I mean, she gets sort of the stereotypical save my baby and that kind of stuff, but she really doesn't get that emotional moment that she should get as Mira with her son being in jeopardy. Dolph Lundgren is back as Mira's father. Again, I don't remember some of the names of these characters. He gets his moment as well when he doesn't trust Orm, and then there's the scene where his life is in danger, and he's depending on Orm, and he didn't give Orm a gun, but he gives him an axe, and the squid monster is going to eat him, and you think Orm is just going to look the other way, but then he saves him at the last minute. So that's kind of like, that's his character moment, Dolph Lundgren. And, it's earned. We also get John Rhys Davies back as the crab guy there. You could tell his voice a mile away, and it was a lot of fun hearing him voice that character again. So again, like the supporting cast got some, some choice moments there. And like I said, I was expecting somebody to die. I thought it was going to be either Aquaman's dad, his mother, possibly Mera, considering that they didn't really want Amber Heard in this movie. So I was really pleased to see everybody survive. Now at the very end, of course, we have Arthur Jr. though, who's in danger, and we get to see that he has the same powers as his father, and he sort of contacts his father under the water during this final siege. And it's kind of a trying last act, because it's very good on the one hand, and on the other hand, there are some things that are like lacking. So let me put it this way: there's some good action scenes in this film. This Aquaman fights Black Manta, I think, no less than 3 times. So that's good that you get a little of that throughout the whole film. At the end, though, Black Manta doesn't really become the threat because he's being possessed by the Lost Kingdom king. And once his hold on Black Manta is over, Aquaman basically just backhands him and he's done. He's out. And you kind of feel sorry for him in a sense that he was like used by this, this undead king to sort of get as far as he did, and then he's sort of an afterthought, which I thought was kind of disappointing. And so they need the blood of one of the royal family to break those undead warriors out of the ice caves or whatever, and Aquaman saves Arthur Jr., and Mera actually comes in having one of her few heroic moments and sort of whisks him out along with Jimmy Woo, Randall Park, who, like I said, had his character arc. He got to save the baby momentarily by trying to switch the baby with a bomb to kill Black Manta. A couple of nitpicks I had was I hate that they never called him Black Manta in the film. I think maybe they did once or twice, but they kept saying David Kane, and it took me after like about 4 times I realized, oh, that's Black Manta's name, because I don't really remember Black Manta's real name. I mean, that's like saying what was Cheetah's real name? You know, Priscilla something. You know what I mean? It's like not too many people have that rolling off their tongue, that the secret identity names of the villains. So if they could have called him Black Manta once or twice more, that would have been good. The other nitpick I had is the whole middle section of the film. Arthur's dressed in like a hoodie and jeans and stuff, and I'm like, he had this sweet invisible suit on, and even if the invisibility didn't work anymore or whatever, leave him in that kind of suit. It's like, I get the feeling Jason Momoa is like, just let me wear something casual, man. I don't want to be wearing one of these skin tight suits the whole movie. But I mean, for Aquaman to just be wearing this, like, the dude bro outfit, I kind of also felt like that was taking me out of it too. I was like, this is Jason Momoa just wanting to have a, casual Friday, and you know what I mean. I wanted him to be wearing something heroic. I mean, it's different if they have a secret identity. Aquaman doesn't really have a huge secret identity. I mean, he doesn't have the Clark Kent thing where he's got to put on a suit and tie and glasses. He just, goes around being Aquaman. So the big finish has Orm come and take the trident, the black trident, and the powers of the frozen lost kingdom Atlanteans sort of works their evil will on him, and he starts getting tempted to overthrow Arthur and take over the throne again, and this and that. And it's a nice moment. There's the completion of the arc where Arthur is like trying to tell him to stop and to let go of the trident, and the flashbacks of when they first met, and how Arthur really wanted a relationship with him at first, and his mother telling them to take care of each other. All that stuff I thought was very effective. And it's like I said, it kind of reminds me of Ant-Man 3, where it's like that last act really kind of makes up for a lot of the stupidity in the film. Um it's one of those things. Your mileage may vary. I mean, to me, if you close out strong, you had a couple of good action set pieces like they did in this film. There was a attack on Atlantis, and then there was the jailbreak, and then there's the big finish. That's enough, really. I mean, does it need to be a masterpiece? I mean, nothing in the DCEU, honestly, in my opinion, was a masterpiece. Everything kind of teeters on, great but not classic. So the Black Manta's fighting Aquaman, and the blood from Aquaman's bloody lip or whatever activates the chamber, and the dead soldiers come out, and of course Orm and Arthur in tandem sort of work, and they hurl the trident, and it destroys the evil king and all that. And, it's a satisfactory climax. I thought it was really effective. It reminded me in a way of Green Lantern from the Ryan Reynolds film, where you had like Parallax doing that whole thing of, release me from the prison and I'm going to be the real actual big baddie at the end of the film. It kind of also harkened back to that too. I didn't really have a problem with that because I think it was executed better than Green Lantern. But I mean, it kind of felt like something like that as well. So then they have the fate of the Black Manta. Now, this is pretty interesting. Now, he's holding on sort of like Last Crusade, when Indiana Jones is holding on and the earth is split up and then he's going to fall and this and that. And Aquaman actually goes over to try to help him. Now, this is where I was sort of conflicted, not knowing, I was like, on the one hand, I kind of, you feel for Black Manta, you feel for Kane, because Aquaman was kind of callous in letting his father die. Now, his father was a mercenary and probably a killer and all that stuff. So you kind of don't really lose any sleep over the fact that he didn't help save his father. But at this point, you feel like, and that was, I think, one of the powerful things of the first Aquaman film is, that whole you create your own demons thing, where it's like if he had like a shred of compassion, for, Black Manta, and that his father was going to die, and he saved him, he would have saved himself a world of aggravation, a world of frustration with Black Manta now trying to kill him, because legitimately he's got an axe to grind because he killed his father. You're not going to just forget that. So Aquaman tries to save him, and you kind of want Black Manta to take his hand. You kind of want him to say, all right, dude, we all make mistakes, and it wasn't really a cool thing to do to let him die, but, he was kind of a grown man being a pirate. But Black Manta won't have any of it, and he just decides to just fall to his apparent demise. Although, this is one of those things where it's, set firmly in the comic book tradition where no body means no death. You don't really see him, land on anything sharp. So you kind of get the idea that maybe he survived, although they don't do anything to suggest one way or the other. And so they escape, and a good undersea battle. It was a lot of fun, and Orm is sort of excused for his crimes, and Aquaman lets him go, which again was nice because he did grow as a character. He did prove his worthfulness, and Mera gets maybe one of her 3 lines saying, nobody will find your body here in the snow, or something like that, because they're going to say he was killed in action. And he goes off, and so at the end of the film, the only post-credit scene we have, which is, technically a mid-credit scene, we don't get a post-credit scene because I'm guessing the post-credit scene was supposed to have something to do with Bruce Wayne, and they didn't stop and film anything else for that section once they excised that. But they have a line earlier in the movie where, like, Aquaman is, like, kind of punking Orm and saying, well, on the land, the cockroach is a delicacy. And so he's like, oh, okay. So he eats the cockroach. And then the post-credit scene has him, eating a cockroach with his hamburger. And that's the final scene from the DCEU. That's what does that say? That he has a cockroach burger as the last scene of the DCEU. But anyway, we got ahead of ourselves a little bit there. But as they wrap it up, Aquaman finally, I guess, convinces the 5 families of Atlantis that it's time to reveal themselves to the world. It's sort of like an Wakanda thing. They want to reveal themselves to the world. They're going to join the UN, and they show the nice montage that Tom, Tamara Morrison's character, Aquaman's father, survived, and his mother is still survived, and I guess going back and forth between Atlantis and Tom, and Mira's there with the baby, and it's just a nice happy ending, and that's what I mean. We need more of that. I always hated the gloomy ending, the depressor, the downer. Why do you need to do that? This is like a fun family film. You know what I mean? Maybe a little intense for some of the younger of the kids in the family, but it's really just a fun family adventure film. I mean, that's what you want for entertainment. I can't take anything away from this film for that. The only things, like I said, is I think they probably could have beefed up Black Manta's role a little bit at the end, where he's sort of taken out very easily. I definitely would have given Amber Heard's Mera more to do. That was very disappointing. And again, you could have shaved off at least 20 minutes of the film. I mean, that would make it like a 90-minute film. But I think, if you retooled maybe that 20 minutes to be a little bit more productive, or something that was a little more eye-grabbing, it would probably have served it much better. So at the end of the film, they end the last scene with a superhero, with Aquaman, where he says, I am Aquaman. And a lot of people have made a lot of this because they say, how come you end the DCEU with your main superhero, the last superhero that you're doing a movie with the final words of the final scene of the MCU's first film, Iron Man, when he says, I am Iron Man? I don't know if this was intentional. I think this might have been just Jason Momoa goofing around, and then they just thought, "Oh, the heck with it. Let's just do it. Just print it. It's fine. This is the end anyway." It's either that or maybe it was just a literal flipping of the bird to the MCU or to Snyder or to I don't know, you know, because it's very strange in a sense that you would decide to do that. But again, the DCU is now in the past. James Gunn is now going to carry on going forward. There's been a lot of hints that Jason Momoa will return as Lobo, a character that many of us thought he would probably play better than Aquaman. Will Patrick Wilson, is that his name? Will he become the new Aquaman if they actually do another Aquaman film? Will he become Aquaman because he's the one that actually looks like Aquaman? And James Gunn seems to be casting very accurate actors, which we got to do a live stream about that pretty soon. But Patrick Wilson, by the way, he is like out of all the actors, he's like taking it the most seriously. You've got to give him props for that because he's like an actor. You know what I mean? He's not going to phone it in. He's never phoned in a performance in his life. And so he's like going for the gusto with all the stupid things that require him to do in this film. He's like doing it like it is Shakespeare. And so you got to give credit to the guy. I just have to add that in. You know what I mean? You could say anything you want about anything, but you cannot say that he is phoning this performance in. So the final analysis, what are we going to say about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom? Like I said, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I think it was a worthy successor to the first film. The first film probably being the best film in the DCEU, if I am being honest. And I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. 4 stars out of 5. Great, but not classic. You know, I would give it a B plus in the alphabet scale and a 7 out of 10 maybe out of the 10-point system. I think the alphabet system the best because I think that kind of gives you the best barometer of this. I think if Aquaman was an A, this is a B plus. They tried very hard to get to the level of A, but I think either studio interference or maybe just the fear of Amber Heard's involvement had a lot of things rejiggered that probably would have made this film better. Had you kept in the Ben Affleck cameos or whatever it was, had you, let Amber Heard's Mera have a little something more to do, it would have felt more natural. And again, like I said, maybe tame down some of the Randall Park stuff and sort of elevate some of the Black Manta stuff a little bit more. That probably would have made it an A film, but I think it's better than a mediocre film. It's not a C. It's a B plus. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you a fan of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom? Are you gonna wait for video for this or streaming? I think another thing we didn't really touch on, the visuals sort of run the gambit. I think the visuals were really exciting when they were doing the undersea kingdom and the creatures and the fish people and this and that. That was all very good. I think the sort of underwater segments kind of suffered this time though, with especially Amber Heard. I think they kind of like just digitally kept inserting her face into certain scenes. And I think that happened with a couple other actors too, where it was like, well, we had to recut the movie and we really don't have the actors, on set. So we're going to sort of digitally take their face from a different scene and try to put it in this scene so it looks like they're underwater and they're doing something. It just didn't feel that lived in. Some of those underwater scenes, the actors didn't really seem that lived in, like it was really them. I think that was a problem. But the rest of the stuff with the creatures and the backgrounds and stuff were all very impressive. I mean, if you wanted to see it on the big screen, that's probably gonna pay off. I mean, I didn't see it in 3D or anything, but if you like to see the big spectacle, you're gonna get your eye full in this one. And also, I wanted to point out the music. Again, I can't remember the name of the musician, but the score was very good. I really enjoyed the score. it kind of had sort of that well, sort of a rock influence. You know what I mean? I kind of felt like it was like a I don't know if I would say 80s, but it kind of had that kind of feeling, like sort of classic prog rock type feeling to it, which I appreciated. So I was really happy about that. So yeah, that's it. I'm gonna give it a thumbs up, but hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, we get a more classic Aquaman next time, a little bit closer to the roots of the to the comics. They did bring back the orange and green suit. I was glad to see that again. Black Manta suit, of course, was very like the comics. James Wan deserves a lot of credit for his trying to visually make the costume, mirrors as well, trying to make the costumes visually match up to their comic counterparts. So again, a lot of respect there for James Wan. And again, will I miss the DCEU? In a sense, yes, because I mean, I kind of feel like it's like, everybody got two films, kind of. I mean, maybe not Ben Affleck. I guess he showed up in The Flash and some other things. I mean, Justice League sort of all gave them a third act, so you can't say they didn't have like three acts if you want to look at it that way. But I kind of wonder what Wonder Woman 3 would look like, Aquaman 3 would look like. Um I mean, maybe if they had done a Superman, Black Adam, Flash movie, what would that have looked like? I have to admit to being curious and wondering what they could have done with this universe had they gone on for another 10 years and sort of wrapped up the loose ends with these characters. I mean, nobody was going to be asking for another Flash movie. I don't think anybody wanted to see any more, I mean, honestly, I wasn't crazy about the Ben Affleck Batman and stuff like that. But I mean, had they been able to do this without Zack Snyder tainting the well, they probably could have saved this franchise. But the problem is he had left such a bad stink on this property because he had no idea what he was doing. And I'll say that till my dying day. He really ruined this franchise. And now, of course, we've got the Batman, the Matt Reeves is sort of splitting off, and Joker 2 is in the works. We really need to get a cohesive DC universe back together. They should really cut their ties with the Batman franchise and the Joker and this and that. Let's focus on James Gunn's universe now. Like him or hate him on a personal level, another one of those things. I don't believe in canceling people. James Gunn has never been convicted of a crime. I mean, he might be kind of like a skeevy edgelord in a lot of our minds, but he's got a track record that's not bad. He's done pretty well with, superhero films. If you're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, I liked two out of those three. And, his sense of humor is suspect. I would be very cautious about how he's going to approach that in the Superman movie. What is it? Superman Legacy. You can't be lewd in a Superman movie. So hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully he's reined in. Let's put it that way. All right. So have you got any concerns, criticisms about James Gunn in the future of the new DC universe? We can talk about that as well. I try to read all the comments on a future live stream, so bear that in mind. And let me know, of course, what you thought about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And so, until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.